You're listening to Grassroots Music UK, www.innovationstudios.com. I'm Marcus and I'm here to do another little Q&A session. I was supposed to be recording today. I'm surrounded by all sorts of equipment here in Studio 1. There are guitars and mandolins and all sorts of stuff. We were due to be recording a little bit more of the Men of Earth album, which is due to be released on the 30th of November. Obviously, with things the way they are at the moment, we're not sure that that's going to be the official release date, as we've got to take a little bit of a break from recording. So I thought I'd get back in here and take some more of your questions. The Grassroots podcast, of course, aimed at those of you on a Saturday night, loading your battered old cases into the back of your boot, squeezing everything in like a jigsaw to go off and entertain at your local working men's club or go and work at the King's Head for the night. So as usual, I'll always try and be fair, I'll always try and be honest, I'll always give you my honest opinion. It is only my opinion, so you can take it or you can leave it. Every musician has the best way, and the best way is the best way for them to get the results that they want. But after 30 years in this crazy industry and 30 years of slaving away in rehearsal rooms and studios and live stages, I know a fair bit about this little game of ours, and I'm happy to pass on any advice I can in as much of a fun way, as much as an entertaining way as I possibly can. So without further ado, I'm going to take our first question today. And our first question comes from Ken in Langdon. And Ken says, in this crazy business of ours where everything goes ahead no matter what, how do you deal with sore throats and colds and the general worries about being on the road and things like that? Well, the best way to deal with a cold, of course, is to not get one. But prevention is better than cure, and there are certain things that you can do. If you're a singer, there are lots of people who look after their voice in different ways, but inevitably sometimes it will happen. And this is a funny business because we learn from a very early age that the show goes on no matter what. And, of course, that's true in many other things. But once you get to a certain level, you read about these bands that they'll cancel Wembley Stadium on the day because somebody's got a sore throat and they can't sing. And, and that's fine. And so sort of 80,000 people will get maybe an email, or back in the old days, used to turn up and there'll be a notice on the gate, on the turnstile, the band won't be playing tonight as one of the band members is ill or whatever. And it's a funny business because what you often find is, 80,000 people can be cancelled from Wembley Stadium because, the singer's got a sore throat and they'll go home. But if I can't entertain Fred and Margaret at the Working Men's Club on a Saturday night, all hell's going to break loose. So I always feel that the show should go on no matter what. And there are various things that you can do. There are various medications and things that you can do. And I mean good medication. I don't mean you have a shot of everything behind the bar. One of the good things that you can do is there are tablets called Vocal Zone, which you can get in most pharmacies and chemists and places like that. Vocal Zone, you certainly get them online, and they're very good. They're a bit, they burn a bit. They're not very nice, but they're important. And I also, just the obvious things: don't eat too much chocolate on the day. Don't eat too much cheese, which you shouldn't eat lots of chocolate and cheese anyway if you're going to be a singer, because it builds up mucus. And I always say about dairy products, it doesn't do you any good. So, try and steer clear of that. If you've got a show coming up, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we all like a bit of cheese on toast now and again, but if you've got a show on that day, try not to have too much cheese maybe from the day before. Just don't, if just in case you get a bit of a cold and all of a sudden it's that little bit worse. But again, everyone's different. Everyone's got different tubes. Everyone's wired a different way. These are the things I've discovered. And so we do what we can to prevent it. And when we drink plenty of water, the other thing to remember about drinking water is it takes probably 6 to 7, maybe even 8 hours to reach the areas that you want it to reach. So it's not just a case of turning up at the show and then saying, okay, well, when I get to the show, I'll have a pint of iced water. That's not the case. You need to be drinking water from probably the morning from about 11 or 12. And it might mean that you'll probably be crossing your legs for towards the end of the first half or towards the end of the show. But drinking plenty of water on the day, it's good for you anyway, flushes you through. So that's the obvious stuff. Try not to have the stuff like chocolate. Chocolate sticks to the back of your throat. You get that. I get it sometimes. It's the chocolate cough. And you sort of get chocolate stuck at the back of your throat. It makes you cough. So these are the things to look for. Vocal zone are very good. Also, they say you should, I've tried things like gargle with brandy. Gargle with it, don't drink it. Gargle with it and spit it out, because otherwise you'll be staggering to the stage. But that burns the back of your throat. That's quite good. Because that's the truth of it. We have to go on. But there are other things that you can do to make your experience of being on stage with a cold or not feeling well easier. There's plenty of software and plenty of apps. If you're using MP3 or whatever you're using, there are plenty of ways of taking the track, your backing track, maybe down half a key, half a step, a semitone or whatever, just to give you that little bit more space to try and do it. Obviously, a good warm-up is good. If you can warm up, that's fine, but we don't always have time to warm up. It's not always that easy for us to do when we're playing in somewhere. They don't often give us a great dressing room, and we don't, if we start singing in the dressing room. So, people come in and ask us if we're all right. Some of it's quite intense. But really, the case is that sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and get through, and you just have to find a way. As I say, everybody's wired differently, and I always feel that from a singing point of view, if I'm, as my dad would say, eaten up with it, where I have a, chesty cough and a cold and all sorts of stuff, I find, as painful as it sounds and as uncomfortable as it is, that singing more from the diaphragm gets me through, because I'm kind of creating air where there isn't air. If I take a big deep breath in, everything that I breathe in kind of picks up all of the mucus and everything. I know it sounds disgusting, but on the way down, and then of course when you come to sing on the way back up again, it brings it all up again. So I find that shallower breathing and using the diaphragm more can help you to find the notes, or at least to get something to come out. The worst thing about it is sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you've got to sing from your shoes. Sometimes you've got to shout as much as you can. Sometimes you've just got to find a way. But the biggest thing is, if you're up there and you're working, then you should be working. You should be finding the best way you can. Take your songs down a semitone if you're able to do that in the afternoon. It'd probably take you an hour, but, it's an hour of sitting in your space or sitting on your laptop, or it's 3 hours of embarrassment, and that could be the difference, The biggest thing about it as well, I never really subscribed to the, to the miming thing, singing along with a track. Is, at the end of the day, if you're going to do that, you might as well just play the stuff and sit there and sit with everybody else and have a drink. But, some people like to put a guide vocal on there, maybe, and then they sing along with it. And if you get it right, it sounds like a reverb. But, if I'm honest, I'm a bit old school, and I don't believe in that. I think if you're paid to perform, then you should be, at least your vocals are live. I know, obviously, that people make a living, and I'm no exception to performing with backing tracks. In my case, I'm lucky enough that because I play guitar as well, I'm able to give myself a bit of a rest now and again while playing an instrumental, maybe something by the Shadows or something that doesn't have a lot of singing, but I can concentrate on the guitar. So it's really being clever with what you have, and once you've done it once or twice, you find a way. But prevention is better than cure. Plenty of water on the day, but early. Don't be doing it at 4 or 5, 6 o'clock. You need it to flush you through. And also, vocal zone is good. Gargling with brandy or port is good as well, gargling with it. And also just keeping yourself warm as well. Even if you're too warm, that's one thing. The thing with not feeling great, and believe me, I've played shows when I don't feel well. I've played shows where the rest of the band are in shirt sleeves, and I've played in a coat because I felt so cold, but the show went on. It's a case of you have to entertain. And keep yourself warm, maybe a scarf or something in the winter. People have summer colds, that's a bit different. And we do have to deal with stuff like, we're human beings. We have to deal with dust allergies. We have to deal with pet allergies. We have to deal with flu, and we have to deal with hay fever. And all of these things that can get in the way of a good vocal performance. As a matter of fact, I'm a little bit mucousy today. Just recording this, I'm realising that at the back of my throat I've got a little bit going on, which is uncomfortable to say the least. But that's probably from all the talking yesterday. We had a long recording session yesterday. And when you're producing, you're chatting and talking, and do you think we should do this, and what about this, and what about that? So But Ken, thanks very much for your message. Good luck in everything you do, mate. And hopefully, once all of this stuff blows over and we're able to get out there again, we'll catch up somewhere along the line. Maybe we'll bump into each other. Let me know if we do. All the best, mate. I'll chat to you soon. Need help setting up your own home studio? Why not book a consultation online? Here at Innovation Studios, we can help and advise on the best equipment for you, your ideas, your budget and your space. Maybe even book a home visit. We can help you set up, install and use your software, offering a recording workshop in your very own studio in your very own home, going through techniques and offering advice and guidance to get you up and running. Go to www.innovationstudios.com for further information. This brings us to another question. This one comes from Lee, and Lee Stripe, it says. And Lee says, "Hi Marcus, has it really been 28 years since our first show? What do you remember about it?" Wow. Hiya Lee, how you doing, mate? It's lovely to hear from you, and I hope you're keeping well. What do I remember about it? Pretty much everything. I remember, I'll tell you where it was, at Pitsea Leisure Centre, and it was with Wall to Wall. And it was, back then it was Pitsea Leisure Centre. I'm not sure what it is now, but it's right in the heart of, by the market and opposite the swimming pool, which is no longer there, I think. And yeah, we booked it. We decided, we've been playing around in the studio for a while, put the set together, and then it was time to do something with it. So we did a ticket do, didn't we? Played a ticket thing. And yeah, we sold some tickets to friends and family and a few other people. We probably had about 150, 200 people in there. Either we've got a big family or lots of friends, but there weren't many stragglers in there, put it this way. They all seem to be related in one way or another. And yeah, I remember we set up in the afternoon, and we were setting up in the afternoon, checking the levels, and we hired a PA because we didn't have a PA of our own. So we hired that up and set that up. And yeah, sound check in the afternoon up on the stage. And I remember it being a good show. I've got some of it on video, not lots. My uncle filmed some of it for me, which I would like to have seen the whole performance. But unfortunately, he loved to sort of record half a minute of a song and then just suddenly jump to something else. So we don't have the show in its entirety. But it's somewhere to start from. And I remember... yeah, I remember we started with Money for Nothing, and I think it's by the end of it we were finishing with Rock and Roll Medley, and they were good days, Lee. And that first show and the subsequent one the following week, which was, I believe, was a charity show. They were good days, and they set me on the road. That was my first show. I don't know, I'm not sure if you'd played a couple before, but that was my first performance. Which also preempts another question somebody asked me this week, was where was your first performance? Well, there's your answer. It was there. Although I'd played and been rehearsing in bands all the way through sort of 1991 when I was 17. So if you do the maths, I won't tell you how old I am, but let's just say I'm feeling it a bit. So I'd rehearsed in 1991 right the way through. And then in 92, I'd kind of thought, well, that didn't really go anywhere, that last band. And here comes a phone call from somebody who knew of me, and would I like to join a band? And that was you, Lee. And I came along, and we played, and we just enjoyed it. And of course, we were like everybody else. We're going to be the next best thing, and we're the best thing ever, and our music's this. And we had one or two of our own songs. I had a song that I'd written, which the band put together, which was great. And yeah, I mean, they were great days, and they're really, really a fun thing to be part of a band. When you're part of a band, you're part of a unit, and you're putting something together, and you're almost family, and you are family, because there are things that happen on the road that you need to be there for each other. I've said this before, but that's true. But Lee, I remember a lot about it. I remember that I couldn't sleep when I got home, and I remember that I was nervous all day. Yeah, it was pretty terrifying. But like everything else, we'd put a lot of work in, and we were ready. And by the time, that intro music, came in and it was time to go, we were ready to go, and we had no doubt about what we were playing, and our preparation was good, and it always was. We were always rehearsing meticulously, a lot more than I do and probably have done subsequently. But at that time, when it's all new, all you want to do is music. And, 2 or 3 hour rehearsal didn't seem like enough. You want to do another 2 hours afterwards, and you felt great and you felt able to do more and to keep rocking. But I remember that, yeah. I believe it was something like the 28th of November of 1992. And that was the first show that Waterwall played. And my first live performance, although I'd done a little bit in rehearsal rooms the year before. So lovely to hear from you, Lee. And I hope you're keeping well, mate. And once again, stay in touch. It's always great to hear from old friends. And thanks very much for your other email, which just congratulated me on the success of the album and stuff like that. I really appreciate that, mate. And I'm glad you like what I do. Thanks a lot, mate. Next question is from Mike. Mike is in Grays. Hi, Mike. How you doing? And Mike's just said, when I'm recording at home, do you ever do more? What he's actually worded is, do you ever do more than double track for rhythm guitar? That's how he's asked the question, Mike. So, do I ever record more than one track for rhythm guitar? Now, there's an old trick that some studios use, and I don't know whether they still use it, but I try and use it if I can sometimes. I try and double mic if I can. Usually one somewhere around the bridge, and try not to put the mic in front of the sound hole because you get feedback. But I try and put one microphone kind of pointing at the bridge and sort of towards the sound hole, and then the other one maybe around the 12th, 13th, 14th fret, something like that, and kind of point that backwards. But all guitars are different when it comes to miking them up, and you'll know when you get it in the right place. They all resonate in a different way. So you have to find the best result, and you'll know when it's right. You'll get that nice rich sound. But what they used to do when I first started in studios, which is 25 years ago, and I've done it a few times since in other studios, so I'm assuming they still do it, is that if they had, they would sometimes mic you up and take a DI from the guitar as well. And what they would do would be to use the microphone on one side of the mix, and then to use the DI on the other side of the mix, because you had effectively double-tracked guitar. And also what I've found as well, sometimes it's good to, there are various things that you can do, but sometimes to save time, and this is, again, if you've got the time, you do it properly. But sometimes if you're trying to get a nice acoustic sound, what can be really nice is if you double-track the acoustic guitar and record it once, and in order to double-track it, what you do is you just take the wave from the second guitar and to very slightly move it, so it's either a fraction ahead or a fraction behind. But we're talking fractions. We're talking what they call a nats here. But in order that it sounds like two acoustics being played, and you will end up with that double-tracked sound. So it's a time thing. If a band come in and they want to record, or somebody wants to record an acoustic guitar and they're giving themselves a weekend to do it, then I'll often say, right, you want two acoustics on this, what, are they both playing the same? And they'll say, yeah. So, and if both acoustics are playing the same, or you need a double-tracked acoustic, you can record the acoustic once, and you can still mic it twice, if you like, you double mic it. But some acoustics react well to one microphone. So again, it's finding a sweet spot. But you can take a DI from the acoustic and put that in the left channel. You can take a mic'd sound and put that in the right channel. And then you can EQ both and get a different sort of sounding guitar that way. Alternatively, you can double mic the acoustic, and then you can split the signal left and right, by duplicating what you've already got. And if you separate it to left and right and move one of them a fraction so that it's just a nats behind the other one, and you've got two, a double sounding acoustic. Apart from anything else, it has like a double sound to it, but also it has sometimes a chorusy sound. It cleans up the acoustic sound a bit, and you don't need to add reverb always, because there's such a nice sound between those two guitars. So the answer is you can either double mic, you can DI an acoustic and mic it. You should always mic an acoustic. Acoustics are not made for direct input. They're basically, direct input was created for live performance, where once you get it going through a ton of speakers and stuff like that, and once they get a bit of phaser on it and get all the right EQs on it, it doesn't sound too bad. But it will never sound like an acoustic unless it is mic'd. And The other thing with that as well is getting a good sound on acoustic, which one or two of you have asked about. It depends on the acoustic, it depends on the player, but I find sometimes a lighter plectrum as well, so you get a raspier sound. Sometimes you can get a raspier sound. I'll try and give you an example. So what I've got is just my general acoustic, probably not tuned very well, but here it is. So I've got quite a heavy plectrum here. And if I play it with a G, there's quite a nice sound. But if I use a very light pick on it, which I'm searching for now, that will add a little bit of rasp. That adds a bit more to it. So when we get that sound, so just having that raspier sound gives it that Pac-Man effect, which can tidy up the mix and bring the percussive side of it out to you. I hope that helps you. Apologies if the sound went a bit funny there, but I try and demonstrate in the best way I can, and if that's grabbing an acoustic or grabbing an instrument, then I'll do that. Music tuition online. Have your guitar, bass, mandolin, vocal tuition, even production live online. One-to-one tuition via Skype or alternative streaming media. Learn from the safety of your own home. For further information, please contact us at Innovation Studios at www.innovationstudios.com. Our next question comes from Lorraine in Benfleet. Hello, Lorraine. How you doing? Lorraine says, "Hi, Marcus. Hope you're well. Where do you find the most inspiration?" Life, I think, is probably the best answer that I can give you. I think this is always the argument that I have with people I work with, and that is there are two schools of thought when it comes to finding things, finding ideas, or working on songs, or working on new material, or anything that you do, whatever you're doing. But life is always a great inspiration. Just your experiences, but it's being clever as a songwriter. You don't want to say, I was with Sarah and she broke my heart. So you kind of have to, you don't name names, but you take the feeling of it. I think I said this before, but you do. You take the feelings of how it felt and you try and sum it up. And I think that's the biggest key to it. But inspiration is always, there are two arguments. One of them is inspiration and one of them is perspiration. So you can sweat on something for ages until you think it's right, which is a good way of doing it. But also, when it comes to making a new album, I mean, where I am at the moment, 20 Forever came out in June of 2020. And I already have my 10 songs for the next album, Lonely in a Crowded Room. But I'm already thinking ahead of, what the next album is going to be about, or what it's going to be called. I try and get an album title fairly early, because I do love a nice album title. The Storm Before the Calm, 20 Forever. It's just, you're trying to come up with something. And if you can come up with something strong, then, sometimes the album will, quote, unquote, write itself, because you'll have such a strong idea. It's a bit like if you have a really good plot for a horror film, it just will write itself, because you think, okay, well, I know how it's going to start, I know how it's going to end, and the idea is so strong. I take most of my inspiration from things that I see or things that I hear, and that's often, in my case, people I've been around or loved ones or friends. But sometimes you'll have an argument or something. You'll be having an argument with your other half or something, because it does happen, even to me. And they'll say something. You'll say, "No, I heard you," and they'll say, "No, you heard, but you didn't listen." And all of a sudden you go, well, there's a great idea there. And I like phrases like daring to be different. And I like phrases, like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, which I always thought would be a really great album title with to have 12 songs on, six, a duo or something, six of one, half a dozen of the other. It may have been done, to be fair, but I don't remember it being done. And I like things like that. I just like phrases. So often, you'll find, a song I'm working on at the moment is called "Building a Bridge," and it's just easy. I'm not going to lie about that. It's easy listening. It hasn't gone anywhere yet. It's in the very early stages. But when all I did was to sing along with a few chords I was playing, and I had this idea for a chorus that went, "We're building a bridge, and all of a sudden it's then, what bridge are you building? We're not talking about we're not talking about a proper bridge. We're talking about a bridge between two people, and then are they friends? Are they lovers? So that's where you start being a storyteller. And that's where you start saying, well, okay, look, this song is about building a bridge, but is it building a bridge between family? Is it building a bridge between loved ones? Is it building a bridge between, a work colleague or whatever? How can I interpret that? So you have to kind of take the feelings. The other thing as well, Lorraine, is just go with the flow. Just find, it doesn't matter if the first few drafts of what you write down are silly or they don't make any sense. I think it's more important that you have a song in a, again, quote unquote, finished form. So you've demoed it and you've got words, and even if they don't make sense, even if you're la-laing your way through or it's just a guide vocal, you then have a template that you can work from. Most of my inspiration is just life. I made a conscious decision when, because the first Wall to Wall album, 1998, and which was Ugly Village Hall. If you've ever been to Ugly Village Hall, and I have been there, the first album was Ugly Village Hall in 1998, and my brother wrote the songs on that. So although I had an input, I didn't actually sort of, my inspiration for that was musical. The second album, Men That Used To Be, came out in 2001, and again, my brother Steve wrote the songs on that. My first solo effort was 2001 on just an album made for myself called Downside Up, which again was a play on words, and it was okay. And then I kind of did so. My first real attempt at doing something that was purely me and purely new and fresh in my mind, at least, was the Matching album in 2016, Live Here, Die Here. And the idea of that was I made a conscious decision that I didn't want to write any songs about love or loss. And ultimately, I think there is a song on there that's about, Nothing Left Inside is about a breakup of some description, but it's an angry one. It's not the love and loss thing. But I consciously kind of decided I wanted to write some songs, and my inspiration was from things around me. Play It Down was really just about having a go at politicians. Who doesn't? So that's nothing original, if I'm totally fair. Nothing Left Inside was about an argument, but probably the strongest song on there for me is a song called How, and it's I believe it's track 2. And track 2, How, and that's a lovely little ditty about assisted suicide and making that decision. And it just so happened I was sat when I was writing the lyrics, and there was a program on about it, and I believe it was called Simon's Choice, but it was on BBC Two, and it was absolutely so sad and so touching, but I remember at one point the nurse said to him, "It's okay for you, but what about the people you're leaving behind?" And it was very, very strong stuff. And when I started writing the lyrics, I thought, these were the things that were being said or suggested. How do you sleep when you don't want to dream? How can you laugh when you want to cry? And it was, so that's lyrically what that was about. That's the inspiration. The perspiration side of it is when you just have to write a song, when someone will say to you, you need to write a song this week. And sometimes I'll get commissioned a song. Someone will say, can you do it? I need a song for this new YouTube piece I'm doing. Or maybe one of the wrestling promotions I work for will say we need a new walk-on piece for one of our characters. And then you have to do it. And this is the difference between being a songwriter and not being a songwriter. It's being able to do it when you don't feel like doing it. It's being able to find something and to make it happen when it isn't there. Now, that applies to all things in life. That to be fair, that applies to everything in life. But really and realistically, when you're a songwriter is when you can create something good. And only good, not the best thing ever, because that tends to be inspiration. But when you can create something that's still good and still stands up when you've had to do it. So when that happens now and again, I often like it. And one of the wrestling promotions will say, we've got this character and we need a real power piece for him or her sometimes. Can you come up with something a bit powerful, a bit driving, And I'll say, okay, send me a picture of them. Or send me a link to one of their matches or something, and I'll have a look. And then I sort of look at their mannerisms, and I'll say, okay, he's a big guy, so probably a nice, big, slow, powerful sort of walking thing would be quite good. And then I'll create something that I think kind of works with what I see. But when they do that, there are some weeks that I'll come in here and I might get the phone call maybe on the Monday, and then I might come straight in and maybe I usually let it digest for a while. I'll get a phone call on Monday or something and I think, okay, I'll make a few notes, watch a few bits and then make a few notes of maybe, because I know a little bit about wrestling. I've never done it myself, but I watch how they move and I think, okay, if they're high energy, if they're running about, then I think that's a faster piece. If they're, slow and methodical and it's a slower piece. I mean, I'm not trying to write the new theme for The Undertaker, I can promise you that much, but for those of you that know, but you are trying to kind of create something. And the point I was coming to was that there are some days when I get the phone call on a Monday, and by the Tuesday afternoon it's done. And there are some times when somebody will say, I've got this idea, I need a theme tune for a YouTube movie I'm making, and they'll send me the characters and I'll get that on the Monday. And they want it by the Saturday, and on the Thursday I'm still sweating over it. I'm still trying to say, well, I've got half of something, and then you're waiting for inspiration. What you try and do is, inspiration kind of comes to you, and it's almost unedited. It's a bit like a computer that doesn't have any RAM. Literally, it doesn't compress anything. It literally comes to you straight away, and there's nothing to get in the way. And sometimes you kind of a bit like the sun. It's a bit like the sunlight. It kind of, there are some days when the sky is blue and the sun is there all day, and you can sit out in it. You can get sunburnt. You can come back in. But there are other days when you only get a little bit of sun, and you have to move your chair around the garden to kind of get as much of the sun as you can. And songwriting can be a bit like that. The perspiration side of it, when you're trying to find something, and the sun won't come out and it peeks out from behind a cloud, and you go, right, I'm going to move my chair out in that direction and just take what I can from that 10 minutes of sun. Oh, it's gone behind the cloud again. Right, why is it going to appear next? Oh, it's over there. And sometimes, metaphorically, you have to move your chair, which means maybe changing a chord progression or changing an instrument or changing a lyric or changing a melody to kind of go with the sun. And you have to kind of make it work. I know that sounds a little bit heavy, but that's who I am, and that's how I describe things. It is like that. On the days when the sky is blue, you can write songs all day. Simple as that. The ideas will come to you, and you jot it down. And there's a song on the Men of Earth album called Tick of a Clock, and I swear it was 10 minutes from start to finish. 10 minutes, and I consider it to be one of the best songs on the album, but it's mine. But I honestly do. I think it's a lovely little song, and I'm proud of it. And also, Lorraine, sometimes it feels like someone else has written it. That's when you know it's good. But you will sort of, has that been done before? Because it sounds like something else. Usually, isn't the case. It's just that good that you don't believe you've done it. So that's how it can go sometimes. But inspiration can be found in a million different ways, and I think some people use music for therapy, in as much as it's therapeutic, rather than writing a diary or having a diary that they keep, they're able to just pour their feelings out and pour them out into a song. And I always say, if you don't get too personal, don't name names and upset people, then you'll always be okay, and it'll always do you some good to get these feelings out. My inspiration just comes from everything I see, everything I hear, and it's being clever. It's writing, taking the feeling, writing about something. It's funny how you could write a song about maybe a milk float or something, but it's not that you're saying, oh, it was lovely and it had loads of milk on the back. It's more about who was driving it, what they meant to you, how you waited on the corner for it to come around the corner, or whatever. A song called, for instance, if you write a song called Dad's Bicycle or something like that, it wouldn't be about my dad went out on his bicycle. It would be, Harry used to look after it, and then he got to a point where he could no longer clean it, or he couldn't ride it properly, and it stayed sort of chained to the shed for a while. So it can be about an inanimate object, but the feeling is about the sadness that comes with them no longer being able to ride it or anything like that. So inspiration comes from being clever, from being imaginative, but most of all, Lorraine, it comes from being around life and enjoying life and kind of just making a note. Benny Hill always had a pen and paper. If he saw something he could make a joke out of, he would do it. Always have your phone by your bed, and wake up, sometimes you'll dream a melody, get it down, sing it into a dictaphone, sing it into your phone, so you've got it, come back to it the next day. There are a million ways to write a song, but inspiration, that's a different thing. Sometimes you'll sweat, sometimes you won't, Lorraine. And that about wraps it up for this week. Once again, thank you for your questions. Pleasure as always to answer them. I hope you took a lot from today, and I look forward to hearing from you again next week. Don't forget, you can send your questions to innovationstudios@gmail.com, and you can visit the Innovation Studios website at www.innovationstudios.com for more advice. If you have any questions for next week, send them to me. I will go through them. I don't filter them. I try and answer as many as I can, and I try and be honest in all of the answers that I have. Lovely to speak to you. If you are going through the lockdown at the moment, and I'm sure most of you are, look after yourselves, keep listening. And if you're strumming a guitar and you're writing songs and you need help or advice, or you need to book a recording session and get them out of your system, let me know. All right, a pleasure as always. I will see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.